The movie I'm discussing today is Interstellar. It was filmed in 2014 and directed by Christopher Nolan. It was telling a story of a time where Earth was doomed to die. Dust, storm, and blight were spreading all over the world, killing all food, wheat, rice, and potatoes, except for corn, which was also doomed to die very soon. The world had to stop a lot of its functions, like science, art, and space explorations, to concentrate their resources on their prime problem, which was starvation. Act 1 Setup. The movie opens with a pan view across a bookshelf that's covered with dust. The scene then fades to a medium close-up shot of an older lady talking to an unseen interviewer, a scene that looks like it's a part of a documentary. We do not know that yet, but this woman is Murph. Murph explains that her father was not always a farmer. As she speaks, the scene suddenly shifts to a space shuttle that Cooper, her father, was piloting. We see him struggling to control the ship after getting orders to terminate the mission. The scene happens to be a dream. When he wakes up, his daughter Murph tells him that she thought he was the ghost she's seeing because he was making noises. Cooper tells her that there's no such thing as ghosts. However, her belief that there is a ghost and it being Cooper is a foreshadow of what's going to happen later in the film. Cooper then gets up to look out the window on a huge green field of corn. To further explain the scene, the old Murph's narration gets back into the scene to explain what the problem is, which is the spread of blight and dust. As Murph speaks, we get to see a series of scenes portraying how dust was taking over a family breakfast in which the family consists of Cooper and his father and his two children. A friendly conversation happens between Murph and Cooper about the existence of ghosts. Cooper explains that what she's saying is not scientific, and in order for her to support her argument, she needs to research and support her argument with facts. As they head to Tom's and Murphy's school, a tire blows. Cooper asks his son Tom to do something in which he says he does not know how to do, and Cooper replies to that by saying that he is not going to always be there to help him. This is a foreshadow of what's yet to happen. This scene was then followed by another foreshadowing incident, when Murph asks Cooper why they named her after a bad thing, which is Murphy's Law. Cooper then explains that Murphy's Law does not mean that something bad will happen, but means that whatever can happen will happen. They get interrupted when Cooper sees a drone flying over his farm. He identifies it as an Indian surveillance drone. He then chases it and takes control over it using his laptop with the help of Murph. He then disassembles it to repurpose it for his farm, symbolizing war to peace. We see in the setup that Cooper is highly influenced by Murph, starting from the discussion they had about ghosts and her finding the how and why her argument might or might not be true, to Cooper allowing her to control the drone and encouraging her to scientifically engage with the world around her. Their close relationship is key to the progressions in the film, and leads to a great giveaway to the main thematic statement of the film, which is love transcends time and space like gravity. This will be understood further later in the presentation. Moving on, they drive to Murph's and Tom's school for Cooper to meet their principal. In a discussion between Cooper and the principal, we learn a few things about Cooper, the protagonist, and the world they live in at the moment. Cooper is an engineer, pilot, and a farmer. There are no more militaries or advances in technology. We also learn that Tom cannot go to university due to his low scores. The principal advises that the world does not need more engineers, but more farmers because of the lack of food. Murph's teacher comes into scene to report on Murph's behavior. She says that Murph caused trouble in class by bringing in one of Cooper's old federal textbooks detailing the lunar landings. The school has replaced them with the corrected versions that says that rockets and other similar technologies were useless. Cooper tries to hold his temper and says that the lack of technology for things like MRIs meant that doctors did not find the cyst in his wife's brain until it killed her. This scene introduced us to Cooper's wound, losing his wife due to the lack of machines and technologies that once existed. He could not save her. As they were heading back home, they get a call that says that their combines are not working. When they arrive, they see the great machines all leaving the fields one by one and stopping at the house. Cooper and Murph head inside as they hear a loud sound knocking upstairs. They go to Murph's room and see a series of books knocked off her shelves. Murph says that she has been counting the spaces the ghost has been making in her books, trying to see if it's trying to communicate to her, maybe using Morse's code. Cooper says he does not think her bookshelf is trying to talk to her. This was a warning Cooper decided to ignore. Both Murph and Donald act as Cooper's reflection characters in Act 1. During a conversation between Donald and Cooper, Cooper expresses his dissatisfaction of being part of a caretaker generation of farmers instead of being able to create new technologies and innovation. Donald then points out that Cooper does not belong to the world he is in right now. In this scene, we got introduced to Cooper's want and need. This scene is followed by the inciting incident. During Tom's baseball game, a massive dust storm approaches and the alarm starts ringing. They try to escape and drive home. When they got home, Murph realizes that she has left her bedroom's window open. She and Cooper run to her room only to see clouds of dust settle into her room as they fall in an unnatural pattern, creating a very specific parallel lines on the floor. Murph says that it's the ghost. This time, Cooper does not deny it. He starts studying the lines on the floor, and so he discovered that it's not a ghost that caused the lines, but gravity. He also found out that the lines spell out coordinates in binary code, with thick lines representing 1 and thin ones representing 0. Cooper and Murph together flip through the maps to find the coordinates location. After marking it down on the map, they head down to the location, in which they find a secret NASA station where Cooper meets his colleague, Professor Brand, and his daughter, Dr. Brand. Professor Brand explains to Cooper Project Lazarus, which is about finding another galaxy that humans could live in. 3 astronaut pioneers who had been sent to space sent back messages about possible habitable planets, so NASA is launching a spaceship to confirm it. Professor Brand then asks Cooper to pilot the ship in search of a livable planet and promises to find a solution for the gravity problem by the time he comes back. This is Plan A. Plan B was to carry mankind's seed to the new worlds. If the gravity equations could not be solved, mankind's civilization will continue in the other worlds at least. Cooper agrees to operate this spaceship because he wanted an opportunity to use his intelligence and to save his kids. This relates back to his want and goal. His decision was followed by a complication. Murph strongly disagrees of her father leaving because she received a message from the ghost who has been tapping over her bookshelf, a message that read, "Stay." Despite her trials, Cooper leaves anyway. This marks the end of Act 1. The team of astronauts decide to land on the water planet that Dr. Miller had visited years ago. However, they are then faced with a barrier. When they arrive to the planet, they found that there is nothing living, and that Dr. Miller's wrecked ship was still sending faulty signals. The barrier here is that they wasted so much time in a useless planet and have wasted too much fuel. They now can only go to one of the 2 planets left, so they decided to go to Dr. Mann's planet. When they got back to the ship, Cooper then experiences a point of no return moment. He watches video messages from his daughter only to find that she is now the same age as him when he first left Earth. Moving on, as they arrive to Man's planet, they find that the planet is icy and not livable like Man has signaled. Man explained that there is a warm subsurface under the ice. Cooper is then faced with a significant setback. He received a message from Murph telling him the truth, that Professor Brand knew that Plan A was not going to work because he knew that the gravity equation could not be solved. Professor Brand believed that it's easier to get people to save themselves and their loved ones than it is for them to save their species. This incident was then followed by a turning point. Cooper decides to follow ahead with Plan B, but go home afterwards. Man leads him to the entrance to the subsurface of the icy land, and as Cooper looks down, Man pushes him. Man was lying. He was sending signals so he could be saved from space, and there was no such thing as subsurface. This scene reveals Man to be the nemesis. Man attempts to control the spaceship so he can return to Earth. However, he fails and causes an explosion that caused the ship to spin out of the orbit. He then dies and Cooper was able to bravely save the ship and get it back on orbit. This marks the end of Act 2. Act 3 starts with a barrier. The ship is now damaged and they have lost almost all fuel. Cooper and Dr. Brand must make a choice of either going home or going ahead to the 3rd planet Edmonds, which lies very close to the black hole. They go anyway. Cooper's shuttle was destroyed and he had to eject himself from it, and as a result, he drifted into the black hole. This brings us to the climax. Cooper enters a 4-dimensional space that allowed him to see his children. He realizes that the ghost Murph was seeing was in fact him, and he tries to stop himself from making the wrong choice of leaving again, but he fails. The climactic moment here is when Cooper finally realizes that he can communicate the quantum data of the black hole to Murph, which he does by causing a gravitational anomaly that encodes a message with the help of the watch he gave Murph before he left Earth. Murph received the message and was able to solve the problem of gravity, which enabled her to rescue humanity from Earth Earth and create a new home in outer space. The Tesseract collapses around Cooper and leaves him drifting in space. The final scene is the resolution. Cooper wakes up in a hospital in Cooper Station, one of the space stations on which mankind now lives. The doctor explains that it's named after his daughter, Merv, who saved humanity. After going to see his daughter on her deathbed, he decides to take a ship out to find his love, Dr. Brand.